Hey YouTube, in this video I'm going to talk about the importance of arm mechanics. At first glance, towards speed, this kind of seems like a waste of your time. Like, you know how to move your arms, it's not complex, it's easy. But just like with your legs, there is a lot of work that can be put in towards your arms to make you move much faster that you might not be aware of. Especially if you're slow, this is probably one of the things that's holding you back. Don't just look at your leg form, look at your upper body form as well. First of all, I want to talk about why your arm mechanics is important. So first of all, the opposite arm syncs up to the opposite leg. And the faster you can get, let's use my right hand as an example, the faster I can get my right hand from in front of me to behind me will correlate to my leg turnover speed being just as fast, because my arm, just like my leg, will start in front of me, and then the leg and my arm will sync up, and once they're both behind, they're matching up, obviously. So the faster I can get this arm behind me, the faster my leg is going to go behind me. Second thing is, if you use your arm mechanics correctly, if you pump your arms properly, you will be able to resist the force from your legs so you don't fall over. This is really simple things. For example, like when you're sprinting, let's use the left leg again. If I don't use my arms and I just put my hands behind my back and I'm sprinting and I come out of the blocks going up, I somehow don't fall over, and I'm upright and I put down a lot of force in my left leg. If I didn't have my arms and I put in all my force and I didn't use my upper body at all, what's supposed to happen is I'm supposed to, with my putting force down with my left leg, I'm supposed to go in that direction. If I use my right leg, I'd go in that direction. Your arms are used to resist that, so you're able to go in a straight line. Because if that doesn't happen, obviously, when you're sprinting, this is going to be an inefficiency. Obviously, you're not going to just put force into the ground with one leg and then you're suddenly going to go off into a different direction. But what is going to happen is you're going to end up shaking side to side, and this shaking is you spilling out energy and you're being inefficient. This is energy that could have been used towards you getting to the end of the race, reaching your top speed and holding it slightly longer, having a more efficient start. But your energy's gone now because your arms weren't moving correctly. The next thing that your arms can do is they can resist the gravity, of your, or that's being put on your body, so that you're able to get off the ground. An easy way to test this would be just to stand up and then pump your arms with as much force as possible. You can tense, doesn't really matter. Just pump your arms as hard as possible. And as watch as your feet just slowly start from being heel down to heel up. You're just on your toes. And you haven't put any force, you can try as many times as you want. You haven't put any force into the ground. You haven't forced your heel up. But over time, as you've been pumping your arms are producing so much force that your body's just gonna get raised up and up until you're on your toes. And obviously, this make a small difference. It's really small, but usually, if you have enough small problems, these make big problems, which is why you'd be slow. And if you can fix this, you can get much faster. Because this is really, really easy to do. It's literally just moving your arms properly. You can get so much faster. And the next thing, and probably the most interesting point, which is why this is so important, is that by doing this correctly, you're able to produce a lot of force into the ground, a lot more than you probably normally would. Because if you was a middle distance sprinter or long distance sprinter and you move down to sprints, obviously you're not actually aware of the importance of using your arms to produce force. If you've been a sprinter for a while, you probably are. Or maybe even if you have been a sprinter for a while, maybe you don't really focus on your arms. But if you can pump your arms with enough force, it can help you produce more force in the ground. Because if you just grab your arm and you just push it down really hard, you're going to feel yourself just propel up. And if you used to try to do this while sprinting, you're going to actually produce a lot more force. Open hands is a bit more complex to feel it, but if you close your hands and you just force your arms down, you can literally feel when your arm straightens out right beside your body, you can actually feel your body almost priming itself to produce more force than you're actually used to. So obviously now we've got that out of the way, how do I make my arm more efficient? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, we need to understand that our arms aren't supposed to cross the midpoint of our bodies. So if you just look here, this arm should never cross beyond this book. Always go forwards and backwards. In fact, keeping it in a straight line would be much better. Always go forwards and backwards here, and this arm does the same thing. Now for the mechanics of the arms, it would look like this. You have You have your arm. Let's say it's up here already. You pull it down. It doesn't straighten out completely, but it almost basically does. Then you pull it back from here, from your elbow. And you snap it back. And then you bring it back forwards. What's important here is when you're sprinting, you don't want to bring your arm up and bring your arm backwards. You want to bring your arm backwards both times. Because you've got two arms. Don't focus on one arm, focus on both arms, depending on which thing you're looking at. It's the same thing like when you're sprinting. When you're sprinting, you don't focus on trying to make sure that you don't focus on your front side mechanics and your back side mechanics. You focus on one, and it's usually your front side. You don't focus on both. And the same thing here. You just want to focus on pulling back your arm, and then it's going to shoot back. Pull back your arm, and it'll shoot back. To make the movement more efficient, you want to make sure that you follow the stretch shortening cycle, which I won't go into too much details about that, but you want to think of your body as a massive elastic band in various places, and your upper body is the exact same thing. So you want to pull back your arm as much as you possibly can until you feel tension, like a crazy amount of tension, to the point where it feels like if you pull it back any further, you're forcibly resisting it, and when that happens, you just let go, and your arm's going to shoot forwards. When your arm shoots forwards, the position your arm's in, from the elbow to the hand, you want to keep that the same. Don't pump your arm up like this. That's an inefficiency. You don't want to do that. When your arm goes from here to here, you forget about the arm. The second you've pulled your arm back as much as possible, you forget the arm exists, and you focus on the next one, and you pull that one back, and you keep that up. Don't pump. Don't do this. If you do that, like I said, an efficiency, you just want to focus on pulling the arm back. If you've been pulling the arm back and pulling it forwards, now's a great time to change that, because you're putting too much, you're wasting energy essentially in your brain, which kind of bro science, but if you think too much whilst you're sprinting, obviously you're not going to be able to enter the flow state, but you're also wasting energy that could be put towards more important things, because you just want to make this something that gets ingrained within you, and it's like, okay, let's pull my arms back. Because like when you're sprinting, most of the time, if you do think about your arms, you'd realize that this thought doesn't really happen often, because most of the time you're focusing on your legs, which is what you're supposed to be doing, and staying relaxed. Those are the only things you really start focusing on. So if you're focusing on not just pulling your arm back, but pulling your arm forwards, which, by the way, if you're pulling your arm forwards, you're kind of dispersing the energy that would be happening from the stretch shortening cycle naturally, and you're just kind of resisting the elastic band or the spring, whatever you want to call it, by forcing it forwards, because you just need to let it happen naturally. You can force your arm back as much as you want, with as much force as you want, but the second you try to